Sure.
That lady that is uh, uh, to the right hand side, the second woman with the dark hair.
Yes.
On X, there's a verified account that has which was also had paid partnership, and it
Mm.
did fundraising. It was to gather $1 million to have me kidnapped. But it went bad for them because a lot of people complained. But the point is that Twitter refused to remove their tweet and refused to touch the account. But when I tweet about, like, I show a picture of, they say, well, this is just propaganda because it doesn't conform with what they believe, that the regime, as they love to call it, is unpopular. They're the good
Yeah.
guys, the Democrats, and so on. I can't get a sentence. I mean, Piers Morgan won't let me talk. Yet this
Yep.
woman who's allowed to talk threatens to kill me. X.
Look, I need you to pay very close attention to what you're about to hear, because this is one of those conversations that completely exposes how broken Western media really is. Professor Marandi, an Iranian academic who's been on the receiving end of literal death threats for telling the truth about US foreign policy, is about to break down exactly how the propaganda machine works. And I'm talking about the kind of propaganda that gets people killed, the kind that justifies wars of aggression, the kind that has billionaire-owned media platforms like Twitter running fundraisers to kidnap journalists while removing tweets that show dead Palestinian children. I know that sounds insane. It is insane, but it's also exactly what's happening. And the fact that mainstream media won't touch this story tells you everything you need to know about who they actually serve. So buckle up. This gets dark. Let's dive in.
The problem is that the United States is ignorant of the reality of Iran. It wants to be ignorant. Western media loves its ignorance. It produces narratives on Iran that have nothing to do with reality, or little to do with reality, usually. And even those critical of mainstream media in the West, or Epstein class controlled media, many of them, like on the left, in the West, not in the global South, in the West, the left and liberals and the right, they are all often, they feel obliged to first badmouth Iran and then talk about Iran. I mean, sometimes you have people, I don't know, they have Iranian girlfriends, or their 10th wife is an Iranian, or from the diaspora. Or some of them were in governments in Europe. I don't know. They want to be relevant in the mainstream somehow. So they have to badmouth Iran. Iran has to be evil, backward, nasty, evil to women, violate human rights. We're the worst of the worst. And of course, people like me are mouthpieces of the evil regime, and that makes them comfortable in to do what they do. But it causes enormous miscalculation because they believe their own propaganda, they believe their own narratives, they believe the analysts that they put in positions of power or influence, at least, and they believe their propaganda. And they hire tens of thousands of people in the Iranian diaspora. Tens of thousands of Iranians are on the payroll in one form or another, whether they're in camps in Albania where there are 3 or 4,000 there, just trolls, online trolls. That's their job. Or they're in other camps, or there are hundreds of Iranian media outlets and television stations in the West funded by Western governments. So when you put all these together, they're definitely well over 10, 20,000 people. And so these people, they get funding, and then they also invite politicians to their gatherings, and they pay them enormous honorariums, I guess. I don't know what you could call it. And then they get funding for them. So this narrative that has been built for the last 47 years, and also which is also linked to our Orientalism and the stereotypes of of old, this causes them to miscalculate. And therefore, when I speak with them and I say that, look, you cannot defeat Iran, they say, well, this is just propaganda, because it doesn't conform with what they believe, that the regime, as they love to call it, is unpopular, it is corrupt, it is imploding. And if you look at the same newspapers in the 1980s that today exist, mostly in an online format, like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and so on, you'll see that the same narrative that we see today existed in the 1980s and the 1990s. All you have to do is if you just put that article here or the headline, if you move them back and forth, you won't notice the difference. So in the 1990s, they were saying the youth hate the revolution, a second revolution is brewing, the revolution has met a dead end. And I actually did I was invited on a television called Al Mayadeen to do an English monologue, a series of English monologues. And one of them was about these narratives and how the same thing that they were saying back then, they continue to say now. The youth, they've turned against the revolution. They've been saying that in the 1990s and again for the last 40 some years. So their understanding of Iran, their narrative of Iran, it has very little to do with reality. So, but they create policies based on those narratives, and then they hit a brick wall.
Okay, I need to pause here because, did you catch that? This man survived 2 chemical attacks, chemical weapons that the United States gave to Saddam Hussein, and no one in the West has ever apologized for that. Not Germany, not the US, not anyone. These are the same governments that lecture the world about human rights and international law, while they literally armed a dictator with chemical weapons to use against Iranian civilians. And then, and this is what gets me, these same people turn around and tell us that Iran is the threat to peace, that Iran is the rogue state. Follow the money, guys. Follow the actual history, not the sanitized version they feed you on CNN. And Marandi's point about the narratives is so important. He's saying that if you read a Washington Post article about Iran from 1985 and one from 2025, you literally can't tell the difference. Same headlines, same talking points. The youth are turning against the regime. A second revolution is brewing. The government is on the brink of collapse. They've been saying this for 47 years. At what point do you look at your analysis and go, hey, maybe we're wrong? At what point do you question the people feeding you these narratives? But they don't. They can't. Because the entire system is designed to manufacture consent for regime change. You've got tens of thousands of Iranian expats on the US government payroll. He literally says tens of thousands, working as online trolls, running media outlets, organizing conferences where they pay Western politicians massive speaking fees to show up and badmouth Iran. It's a full-scale propaganda operation funded by your tax dollars. And the people running it know exactly what they're doing. They're not stupid. They're creating a narrative framework that makes war seem reasonable, that makes sanctions seem justified, that makes you not care when Iranian civilians suffer. And here's the thing. Marandi mentions this book by Flint and Hillary Leverett, 2 former National Security Council officials who worked under Condoleezza Rice. These are not radical leftists. These are establishment insiders. And they wrote a book saying, hey, maybe we should actually try diplomacy with Iran instead of demonizing them 24/7. And what happened? They got destroyed. Their own friends attacked them. Because in Washington, telling the truth about Iran is career suicide. The donor class won't allow it. The military-industrial complex won't allow it. The Israel lobby won't allow it. So the propaganda continues, the lies continue, and the people pushing for war face zero consequences. Let me know in the comments, Do you think mainstream media actually believes their own Iran propaganda? Or do they know they're lying and just don't care?
Questioning the narratives, they just say, well, let's do it again and again and again. So they impose maximum pressure sanctions. They carry out armed rebellions. They make people suffer. They launch wars against the country. This is the third war that the United States has helped launch or directly was involved in launching against the country in the last 47 years. In 1980, they supported and encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade. They were allies of Saddam Hussein back then. They gave him chemical weapons to use against us, including me. I survived 2 chemical attacks. No one in the West ever apologized for the chemical attacks, especially the Germans. And yet they speak about human rights and so on. But that's another story. So they failed, but they failed to comprehend the fact that their failure is based upon their lack of understanding. Actually, there's a very good book that's somewhat old that 2 former White House officials wrote, Flint and Hillary Leverett. It's called Going to Tehran. When they wrote this book, actually, they were proposing, and I think everyone should read the book, even though it's like a decade old, but it's very much worth reading. I don't agree with everything in it, but these were 2 people who worked in the U.S. National Security Council under Condoleezza Rice. Flint Leverett was the head of the Middle East, so he was an important person, and Hillary Leverett was the head of the Persian Gulf. And they met in the White House. Flint is a Catholic, Hillary a Jew, and they married. They wrote this book. After they left the White House, they wrote this book. Very decent people, very, very good book. And they were attacked and abused by even their own friends. Simply because they were saying, look, Iran is not this nasty, sinister place that you say it is. And the best thing is to move towards rapprochement with Iran. It's not going away. And if analysts had listened to them, through people who worked in the White House, and then we wouldn't be where we are today, and the global economy wouldn't be on the brink of collapse and a global economic depression, probably worse than 1929, if things continue down the road that we're taking right now.
Yeah, Professor Marandi, I definitely want to come back to the economic implications, the fallout here. But I want to pick up on what you've started with, which is the sort of the propaganda, the spin that is laundering this war of aggression. I actually just saw a clip from an episode of Piers Morgan that came out today, where I picked up on the fact that there were really 2 main recurring arguments that are made by folks that are put in the kind of difficult position of justifying why a war instigated by the United States is somehow the fault of Iran. One is citing to the number changes, but in this case, I think it was 30,000 alleged protesters that have been killed in the streets of Iran, which provides some justification in the eyes of people who leverage the statistic. And the other is this kind of post hoc rationalization based on the idea that Iran lied about the capacities of its ballistic missiles, a missile going farther than they had advertised, meaning that they must have been lying about everything in the capacity of their nuclear program, and that justifies, therefore, this provocation. Can we actually play a piece of that clip for the professor to hear for himself?
It doesn't obscure the fact that it's fundamentally illegal. Under the standards of the Nuremberg trials, aggression is the supreme international crime.
Stop just for a second. Can you freeze this?
Sure.
That lady that is to the right-hand side, the second woman with the dark hair.
Yes.
She has threatened to kill me, and she said the biggest piece of your body will be the tip of your finger.
What? Like, are you serious right now? This woman went online and threatened to dismember this man. Literally said the biggest piece of him left would be his little finger. And Piers Morgan still books her as a guest? And nobody at that network said, hey, maybe we shouldn't platform someone who publicly threatened to murder an academic? But Piers Morgan will interrupt Marandi every 5 seconds when he's trying to explain US foreign policy. That's the guy they silence, not the person making death threats, the guy telling the truth. And then, dude, the Twitter thing is actually insane. Somebody ran a verified fundraiser on Twitter to raise $1 million to kidnap Professor Marandi. $1 million to kidnap a journalist. And Twitter let it run for 10 days. 10 days with a paid partnership badge. They were monetizing a hit job. And when people complained, Twitter's excuse was that Marandi himself must have paid for it. From Iran, a country that's economically sanctioned and can't even access Western payment systems. That's their story, that he paid to have himself kidnapped. But when Marandi tweets a photo of dead Palestinian children crushed under rubble and writes, Western civilization, because, that's what Western bombs did to them, Twitter removes the tweet and threatens to suspend his account. So to be clear, fundraising to kidnap and murder a journalist? Totally fine. Showing the consequences of US-backed warfare? Unacceptable. Violates community standards. This is not a bug. This is the system working exactly as designed. These platforms are billionaire-owned propaganda machines. Elon Musk talks about free speech, but he's perfectly happy to let assassination fundraisers run, while censoring anyone who criticizes Western imperialism. It's so transparent, man. It's genuinely just crazy that this is what passes for journalism and free speech in 2025. And the fact that Instagram and Facebook just banned Marandi outright, didn't even bother with the pretense of due process, just removed him completely, tells you everything. These platforms don't care about truth. They care about narrative control. They care about making sure voices like Marandi's don't reach a mass audience. Because if people actually heard what he has to say, if they understood the context, the history, the money trail, they might start asking uncomfortable questions. Like, why are we funding a military that's committing war crimes? Why are we sanctioning countries into starvation? Why are we threatening World War III to protect corporate interests? Let me know in the comments. Do you think Elon actually believes in free speech? Or is it just free speech for people who agree with him?
Your little finger.
Oh my God.
And but yet after doing that, and she did this online, she posted it on, after that, she's still a recurring guest on Piers Morgan's show.
You mean to tell me that Piers Morgan hasn't condemned her? He hasn't asked anybody to condemn her?
He condemns me. But he condemns me. So he brings on this woman after she threatened to murder me, not just murder me, that she said, when we're finished with him or me, the biggest piece of him will be his little finger. So this is, or for example, and sorry, I'm distracting.
No, please vent.
You, but on X, there's a verified account that has, which was also had paid partnership, and it did fundraising. It was to gather $1 million to have me kidnapped. And of course, after I'm kidnapped, obviously they torture and kill me. Otherwise, what are they going to do with me after they kidnap me? And X refused to remove it. Like,
are you serious?
It was there for 10 days. And then they, later on, after like 10 days or so, they said that they removed the paid partnership, and then I think it went bad for them. So they said we went and looked into it, and we saw that I, meaning me, Sayyid Mohammed Marandi, paid for the paid partnership, and so we ended this. I mean, I'm in Iran, I'm sanctioned. We don't have. Anyway, so the point is,
their argument was that you paid for the hit job kidnapping advertisement on yourself from economically sanctioned country.
Exactly. So they removed the paid partnership, but I guess the offer stands, and the people who paid them, I don't know where that money went and what they're going to do with it and who the people were that paid. But it went bad for them because a lot of people complained. But the point is that Twitter refused to remove their tweet and refused to touch the account. But when I tweet about, like, I show a picture of 3-4 Palestinian kids crushed under the rubble of a building and only their feet are hanging out, and I write Western civilization, I get emails saying that you have to remove this tweet. What the West, this is not Western civilization, and unless you remove this tweet, you won't have access to your account. I've had many of my tweets removed for such things, but they gather money. They do fundraising to kidnap me, and that they won't remove the tweet. So this woman,
it's disgusting.
She threatens to murder me and to tear me to small pieces. Yet Piers Morgan, who has producers who do their research, and I actually think I told one of his producers that's what she's done, what she said. They continue to invite these people. So this is the nature of Western media and power.
You're absolutely right. I think blessedly in this particular clip, I don't think that woman happens to speak. It's another venerable, I'm sure.
I just want people to know that this is what we in Iran are dealing with.
Yeah,
they're the good guys, the Democrats, and so on. I can't get a sentence. I mean, Piers Morgan won't let me talk. Yet this woman who's allowed to talk threatens to kill me. X removes my tweets. I mean, Instagram and Facebook have just removed me altogether years ago. But X removes my tweets. But when people are gathering money openly to kidnap me and do whatever it is they want to do afterwards, that's fine.
So here's the verdict. Professor Marandi absolutely dismantled the entire Western media narrative on Iran in under 15 minutes. And the crazy part is, everything he said is verifiable. You can go look up Flint and Hillary Leverett. You can read their book. You can verify that the US gave chemical weapons to Saddam Hussein in the 1980s. You can check Twitter's own policies and see that they allow death threats against anti-war voices while removing posts that show the reality of US foreign policy. None of this is a conspiracy theory. It's all documented. And that's what makes this so infuriating. We're not talking about some fringe opinion here. We're talking about a clear, provable pattern of propaganda designed to manufacture consent for war. The same playbook they used in Iraq, the same playbook they used in Libya, the same playbook they're using now with Iran. Create a villain, dehumanize the population, flood the media with narratives about the regime and human rights abuses while completely ignoring your own war crimes. Pay a bunch of exiles to tell you what you want to hear. And then act shocked when your policies fail because they were based on lies from the beginning. The people pushing this propaganda, they're not stupid. They know what they're doing. They're getting paid to do it. Whether it's the Iranian expats on the US government payroll, or the think tank ghouls getting funded by defense contractors, or the media personalities collecting checks to platform assassination advocates, they all know. Marandi said it himself. They believe their own propaganda. And that's the scariest part. Because when your entire worldview is built on lies, you make catastrophically bad decisions. You launch wars you can't win. You destroy economies. You create refugee crises. And then you blame the people you attacked for the mess you created. And look, I know some of you are going to say, but what about Iran's government? What about their human rights record? Fair question. And Marandi would probably tell you himself that Iran isn't perfect. No government is. But here's the thing. That's not what this is about. This is about war. This is about whether the United States has the right to bomb another country back to the Stone Age because we don't like their government. And the answer, according to international law, according to the Nuremberg principles that we use to prosecute Nazis, is no. Absolutely not. Aggression is the supreme international crime. Full stop. So if you made it this far, hit that like button. Share this with someone who still thinks mainstream media is giving them the full story. Drop a comment and tell me, are you surprised that Twitter allows fundraisers to kidnap journalists while removing tweets about dead children? Or is this exactly what you expected from billionaire-owned media? This is what we do here at MB. We follow the money. We call out the propaganda. We don't let them memory hole the truth just because it's uncomfortable. Stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.